Welcome to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast, where you can learn and be inspired by real-world examples of how technology is transforming businesses and reshaping industries in a language everyone can understand. Here is your host, Neil C. Hughes.
Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast. And for those of you that didn't know, once upon a time, I did support some of the biggest live venues here in the UK. And if you give me enough free beers and the occasional Jack Daniels, I'll let you into a few tales of being backstage at a One Direction gig, a Katy Perry gig, not to mention the 2012 Olympic Games in London. But man, that feels like a lifetime away. So I'm not going to share those old war stories with you today. But what I did enjoy about that time was hearing pitches from tech companies that wanted to solve problems at live events. For example, if you've got 15,000 people in a venue, how do you serve them all with food and drink and eradicate those long queues? Because the reality is, there is no way that you can feed 15,000 people at the same time. It's just never going to happen. So I've seen everything from in-seat ordering to third-party queue busting systems, and it all ran into issues. But there must be a way to stop these long lines at the bar. So my time there left quite an imprint on me and left me with quite a keen interest as well in anything that can actually solve that problem of thousands of people wanting food and drink at the exact same time. And the reason I told you this backstory is because it led to me discovering a New York City-based company called Billfold. And they developed a wireless point of sale system that delivers RFID technology to on-premise payments at large-scale events and venues. And my understanding is that Billfold provides an intuitive and seamless experience for attendees at any event. So customers can purchase food, drinks and merchandise with a wristband that's securely connected to their credit cards, that's also using customer-facing touchscreens that enables them to go and place and finalise their orders. But all that was enough to pique my curiosity, so come with me on a trip to New York so we can speak with them now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Hey, how's it going? My name is Stas Chujik. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Billfold, and we provide payment solutions for large-scale events and venues across the country and now expanding into Mexico and Europe.
My understanding is that you're a New York-based company, and Billfold developed this wireless point of sale system that delivers RFID technology to on-premise payments, but at large-scale events and venues. But can you set the scene and tell me a little bit more about Billfold and the kind of problems that you're solving with technology?
Yeah, I mean, with Billfold, we're actually solving initially our own problems. We've been in the events space for the past 10 years, doing food and beverage catering for the events where Billfold currently operates. And we ran up against an issue ourselves. As our business grew and we were doing bigger and bigger events, we realized that payments were taking up way too much time. And we started looking at different solutions on how we can improve that payment efficiency, initially at our own events. And that's when we came across RFID, and we saw it as the fastest form of payment. However, the implementations and solutions that were in the market still didn't solve for the issues that we were trying to address. So one of the biggest problems that we addressed with Billfold, we developed a direct credit card connection to the RFID chip, meaning that customers didn't have to add credits to the wristband. So after connecting their card once to the wristband, they were free to spend as much as they wanted to. The second issue that we addressed with our product was self-activation. We wanted customers to be able to activate their wristbands on site without having to pull out their phone or really get distracted from the experience. So we developed an activation terminal where customers could do it themselves, like they do at the airport when they're crossing the border or when they're checking in for their flight. The solution around that, with the experience that we've had in the space, we really focused on the efficiency of it. So we've actually brought down the activation time to 20 seconds, which allows for a very large scale event to still be able to distribute the wristbands on site and then allow customers before they enter the event to activate them at one of our terminals. And then the third problem that we solved with our system was we developed a dual screen solution. So that was another aspect that we felt was very important, because we didn't want the staff wasting time on doing the transactions or flipping around screens or having customers to sign checks. We wanted the customer to always be able to see their order and then be able to complete the transaction on the screen that is facing them. So with all those things kind of in place, we launched Billfold, and that's when we saw a massive uptick in sales, because the process was so easy and customers were having such a good time spending and they didn't have to wait in lines. So that's how we've been able to hit such record numbers.
I'm curious, do you have to have one staff member just observing things like you do at the passport lanes, just in case that anybody encounters a problem?
Correct. Yes. Usually the events where we work, there's one or two people at the front kind of observing and making sure that, if questions do come up, they're there to answer them. But at the end of the day, everything within our system is designed to be as self-explanatory as possible.
And I'd love to hear more about what it looks and feels like in a live environment. But before we go there, Billfold's cashless wristbands are the product of a collaborative project, which was, I believe, strategically engineered to have a customer-centric design and user-friendly interface. So before we talk about it in action, can you just walk me through the story behind Billfold?
Yeah, I think the story behind Billfold is something like I mentioned already before. It's really comes from our own pain points. So that's, like I said, we really designed the system for ourselves. And then when we saw the system working really well at our own events, that's when we decided that we can actually take it to market and share it with all event organizers and venues across the US.
And a long time ago, before I was a full-time podcaster and writer, I did work in IT and in the entertainment industry, and also attend a lot of music gigs. So when I read that customers can purchase food, drinks, and merch with a wristband that's securely connected to their credit cards using this customer-facing touchscreen and be able to finalize their orders all on their own, I thought to myself, at last. But can you just help listeners visualize how it all works?
Yeah. So after getting their ticket checked at the ticket counter, they get an RFID wristband at the event. And then after walking through that process, they arrive at a bay of kiosks where they can go up to any one of the available kiosks and follow the simple 4 steps on the screen to activate their wristbands. The steps followed this format. First, they choose their language. Then they swipe their card. After that, they have an option to enter their email to receive their receipts. After signing up to receive their receipts, they accept our terms and conditions. So after creating a 4-digit PIN that they're going to use to complete the transactions on site, meaning that after they tap their wristband for payment, they're always prompted to enter a 4-digit PIN. So this is a security feature that we developed because we didn't want customers to be worried if their their wristband is lost.
So if we fast forward straight to the event where there's 14,000 attendees, all hungry and thirsty, and the venue wants to sell as much merch and drinks, etc., as possible, I'm curious, how do you overcome the challenge of ensuring as many people in that audience sign up, fund their wristbands? Because that must be the biggest pain point and ask of a customer.
Yeah, you know what? That's something that we thought was going to be an issue ourselves when developing the solution. But the reality is that after customers do it, the most common thing that we hear from the people signing up to use their wristband is, wow, this was easy. And then the other one that for whatever reason everyone happens to say is, this is the future. So those are the two things that we hear in the activation area said time and time and time after. So it really does work and the customers love it.
And assumingly, once you've signed up and you've got your wristband, it's not just about that gig on that one particular night. You can use it for a gig in 6 months' time from now. Is that right?
No, as a matter of fact, the wristbands are activated per event. So they're not used across different events, but if an event is going on for, let's say, multiple days, multiple weekends, or if it's a client who has a permanent venue, we can actually create a wristband that can be used many times over.
Gotcha. So somewhere like Madison Square Gardens, for example, they could just adopt it and anyone that goes to Madison Square Gardens could use it all the time.
Correct. Yeah. And then that's something that we set up in conjunction with the client based on their own needs.
So if we do have any event operators or venue management teams listening, they'll be familiar with the many new tech solutions that seldom deliver on their promises. So I was a little bit cynical to begin with, but can you share some of the data over 400 events that you've run? Because I think it really highlights the ROI on exactly what you're offering here.
Yeah, I mean, so for us, really what we see is a minimum of a 20% increase in per person spends. That's really like the lowest that we see across all of our clients. And then it really goes up to 67 that we advertise on our website, and then actually even higher in some cases. But we just don't like to talk about that because it's going to seem unrealistic to event organizers.
And no matter what the format, live events and festivals anywhere in the world, when you do have a large number of people wanting a drink or something to eat at the same time, you still have to get in line. So I'm curious, do you have any stats around how you can shorten that wait in line?
Yeah, so the productivity rises quite significantly with Billfold. So what we see during peak performance hours is that a staff member can actually do 3.5 transactions a minute, and that's significantly above any other system that is really out there. So that transaction efficiency is really what drives that increase in revenue. And because there's less lines, people are willing to spend more because it's not anymore that hesitation. Do I want to wait for 10 minutes to get a drink? Now it's going to be, do I want to wait a minute? And usually people are more than happy to wait a minute to get something.
When I first saw these wristbands, I had to do a bit of research and find out a little bit more about you. And I quickly came across this great story where, and I think it was an event team running a 27-hour New Year's Eve party. And after the midnight toast, they were dismayed to see the cases of champagne that were left over. For anybody that's not seen that article, can you tell me a little bit more about how you turned that challenge into an opportunity for the client?
Yeah, so the opportunity really lies in the fact that we do have that customer-facing screen. And that customer-facing screen, besides showing the transaction and allowing the customer to complete it on there, 2/3 of it are dedicated to ad placements. This advertising space is really something that we allow our clients to use creatively. Sometimes they'll notify customers of specials. Sometimes they'll notify customers of their sponsors. Other times they'll talk about the times when the certain musician is coming onto stage. But in this particular case, when all the champagne was left over from the midnight toast, a creative idea came up to do a mimosa special. Since it was a 27-hour party and the sun was already well up, I think mimosas seemed like the perfect idea to offer to all of the event attendees. So in a matter of 5 minutes, quick advertisement was created and then pushed to all the devices to notify customers of this mimosa special that was available. And within an hour, as soon as that advertisement was posted, all of the champagne was sold out. So that was just a great use case of this customer-facing ad space to really push product and help with selling something that wasn't really moving at that time.
So a question I've got to ask, I mean, what is the secret, do you think, to building a point of sale system that doesn't drive the staff crazy and something that the customers actually appreciate? Because there's so many people trying to find that sweet spot, but you guys seem to have done it. So what do you think the secret is?
I mean, honestly, it comes down to us being operators, because when designing this product, being operators and having worked with numerous point of sale systems, we wanted to really address, all of these issues that the other systems have. The issues being really inefficiency, too many buttons, too many different things that a staff member can do in the point of sale. So we boiled it down to a really simple process of just selecting items and then pressing checkout. So for that reason, we've been able to train even a volunteer bar staff of over 100 bartenders coming from the local senior centers. So we did this event actually a couple years now in a row, and we're doing it again next summer. So this event, they do big beer tasting, and because they work with local communities, they want to support the senior staff members, and they actually bring them on board to do bartending. Any other point of sale systems would have been a really big headache to train, to then, make sure it's done correctly. And with Billfold, they're able to just hand over the devices to the staff, and the staff were able to start transacting with no problems.
I think it was IBM said a few years ago that the last best experience that anyone has anywhere becomes the minimum expectation for the experience they want everywhere. So I would imagine that once people have used the wristband, first of all, they get cool points for not waiting in line and proudly say to their friends, no waiting in line for me, suckers. And then, of course, they expect that experience everywhere you go. Well, that's what I would imagine. But is that the kind of feedback that you've had?
Yeah. And that's how we get most of our clients. We get a lot of referrals from people who come to our events, use the system once, and then when they return to their hometown, they tell about it to their friends who might own venues, or they might be venue owners themselves. And they just reach out to us through our website, billfoldpos.com, and we set them up, and they start implementing it in their local area.
Now, I'd noticed you just gave your web address there. So if anyone listening, could you just repeat that web address? And also, if you've got a best way of anyone contacting your team, if there was a venue anywhere wanted to get in touch or just continue this conversation we started today.
Yeah. So the best way to contact us is directly through our website. That is billfoldpos.com. Or if you're interested in getting the system for one of your events or venues, you can also email sales@billfoldpos.com.
Fantastic. Well, I love everything that you're doing here. And I think everybody listening is going to have been to an event, a concert, or even a sporting venue at some point. But it's that waiting in line when you just want something to eat and drink. And equally, the venue itself wants to sell more items. So it's a solution that's desperately needed. So I wish you the best of luck with it for the future. And I'd love to get you back on next year and find out how that journey's going. But more than anything, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Neil. I really appreciate you having me on, and I look forward to catching up with you next year.
The cautious ex-IT guy in me thinks, yeah, that's great, but how do you get people to sign up and get that wristband on and then link it to their credit card in a world where people just want things to work, that don't want to come across any pain points or friction points? But based on Billfold's data from over 400 events, their clients have seen revenue boosts from 20% to 67% per event. And that was all thanks to more frequent patron visits and keeping those lines moving faster. So they certainly seem to be onto something here. But I'm curious, if you work in the event industry anywhere in the world, I'd love to know more about what has worked and what hasn't worked in your attempts to leverage technology to cut those dreaded queues at bars and restaurants. And honestly, I cannot think of any other environment where we have thousands of people lining up saying, here is my cash, sell me more overpriced food and drink. But the venue cannot fulfill all those orders quick enough. It's crazy, isn't it? And a great problem to have. So what if technology could increase those orders and dramatically increase the profits of these venues and promoters? And the attendees can also go home with a big smile on their face. Everybody wins. But let me know your thoughts on this one. And you can do that by emailing me directly, techblogwriter@outlook.com. Tweet me at Neil C. Hughes. You can get me on LinkedIn, Instagram, everywhere else at Neil C. Hughes. And I'll get straight back to you. I do reply to every single email as long as it's not a sales pitch. So let me know your thoughts and I'll get straight back to you. And finally, a big thank you to today's guest for coming on here and sharing their inspiring story behind Billfold. And as always, much love and appreciation from me to you for joining me today, wherever you are in the world, tuning into this daily tech podcast. I'm more aware than most that asking you to tune into a daily tech podcast is a pretty big ask, but I genuinely appreciate it. So keep your messages coming in, and a big thank you for listening. And until next time, don't be a stranger.
Thank you for listening to the Tech Talks Daily Podcast with Neil C. Hughes. Remember, technology works best when it brings people together.